Evening, we're live. First
Evening.
partner chat of the year. So welcome along. If this is your first, welcome along. If this is your 50th, Happy New Year. Hope you had a great Christmas. First topic of the year that we're addressing is getting ready to buy your first property in 2023. We know a lot of people make decisions over Christmas and New Year. A lot of people come across deposits with family money and that kind of thing. So we thought we would explain the process to a first-time buyer. So introducing how to buy a property. Firstly, do you think we should get music back as we come in? We did
Yeah.
music for a few weeks. I think we should bring back the intro music. Bring
Well,
back the
that's
drama.
stars in your eyes.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe some smoke.
There's smoke coming up from below the screen.
Yeah.
Tonight, Matthew, we're going to introduce buying your first property in 2020.
I'd rate that so highly.
Let's do it next week. We'll plan it. We'll bring props. It'll be almost as well decorated as Mike's background there. There's all sorts to look at in the background of that picture. Absolutely unbelievable. But he doesn't have Gary. Sorry, Mike. So, small talk over. Gents, thanks for joining me on my left, your right. I've got Mike Childs. Mike looks after our High Wycombe and Bucks area. Beneath me, Dan Salisbury of Dan and Neil, who are specialists in Lower Early, Shinfield, Arborfield and Winnersh areas. And then down to my left, your right, Andy Mead, head of New Homes Company, Mead New Homes, so selling new homes across the southeast. So Andy's just popped in a very useful guide if you are looking to buy a new home, which is a guide to buying a new home, which is part of the topic that we're talking about today. So we're going to split this down into 7 parts across the half hour or so that we're having a chat. 7 sort of different stages of buying a property. The first stage that we've defined between us in the prep for this chat is your preparation before you even go anywhere near a house. Let's start with Dan. What preparation should you be making to make yourself in the best position from a bills and a credit perspective?
Okay, so we'll assume you've got to your point where you've got your deposit for your home, whether that's 5% or 10%. But then you've got to think about going to get your mortgage. But actually, before you get to that point, it's how you best prepare everything for going to see your mortgage advisor, making sure that you're in a position to do that. So if we're talking about credit and building that up, and that, let's say it takes a year to do that, you need to think about how you're spending your money, what bills you have, what debts you have, and how they're serviced. So that could be credit card debt. Is it clear, which it should be? Or if you've had credit card, is it smaller amount to clear it off to build a credit rating up, which is a smart thing to do. Making sure you've not missed any payments. I can talk firsthand about this because I bought my second home. I don't have 2 houses, but I sold and bought a new place last year. And as I was doing my mortgage, I actually missed a year ago somehow a water bill, Thames water bill payment of it was like £8. I didn't even know. It was like a day or 2 late. I just paid it off. That actually affected my mortgage to get it, and I had to rewrite a letter. This is out of the norm. So something as small as that to make sure you're not missing any payments is really, really important. And we've also spoken about other things like continuous betting. So if you're nothing wrong with the odd bet here or two once a couple of months, but if you're continuously betting on the Sky Bet app, for example, every weekend and throwing money down the drain, it looks like a habit, and lenders will look at those things as well.
Yeah, they'll be deducted from your affordability on a mortgage if you're putting £50 into a Sky Bet account every week. Then they'll look at that as a consistent bill, like a utility bill. So it's something that can be cut down. And if you're going to do it, you can still do it in cash, and no one would ever know, rather than doing it on a traceable thing.
Yeah.
My tip for that is download a free app called Credit Karma. It's like I say, it's totally free. Every so often they'll try and sell you a credit card or a loan, but you can just totally ignore that. But it will tell you the best ways to increase your credit rating on a monthly basis, and it will tell you who's credit searching you, and it will change you if there's any tell you if there's any changes in your credit scores. And like you, Dan, I got caught out by, I'll name and shame, like you did, Barclaycard. Who I closed a Barclaycard account, and a year later they accepted a subscription payment from Amazon and charged me for it, and then tried to take me to court for a CCJ, even though the account was closed. I eventually chased them through the banking ombudsman and got compensation for it and had my credit record repaired, but it could have prevented me from getting a mortgage. So I had to act really quickly, and I would have never known that if I didn't have the Credit Karma app. It would have slid right under the radar because it was all being registered at a previous address. So it's a massive thing. If your credit rating, or you have problems with your credit, or you're spending money on different things, it can cause a real issue with your affordability on a mortgage. So get your credit in order is first and foremost. So credit's in order. Credit rating is nice and high. You've got a credit card that maybe you're buying your fuel on every month, and paying that balance off in order to show that you can pay debt. Mike, next stage, actually sourcing the money.
Sourcing the money. Go and see a mortgage advisor. Nice and easy. Don't go to your high street bank, or you can do, but I advise just go to speak to a mortgage broker who can give you a full overview of the market and go from there. I mean, I bought a house. My first house was 20 years ago.
You don't
Was
know.
it about tenner?
20 years ago, so I was just thinking before I logged onto it. I've got no memory of doing it in the right order at all. Which, no advice. I think I bought the wrong house. It needed loads of work. I regretted it straight away. I needed this 20 years ago to help me, but I did go see a mortgage broker.
So how do you define and how do you find and source the right mortgage broker? Because in my opinion, I've just put one of my friends in contact with my broker, and his response, he messaged me yesterday and said, I've gone ahead with the mortgage. It was nice to actually get an opinion off someone for the first time. So how would you source and find the right broker?
How I would do it through recommendation, but I think you've got to trust them as well. Personally, getting on with them helps.
Family and friends who they've used.
Yeah. Like if it's a family or friends recommendation, that's how I do it, on trust.
I'd ask maybe one or two questions of the broker. Firstly, are you tied to a panel? So it's a bit of an estate agency jargon here. Are you panel tied? Maybe you can explain that one to everyone.
Tied to, open to all the lenders. Some mortgage brokers will only have access to they may claim they can look over the whole market, but really they're only tied to a few or a dozen that they can access. So you really need to sort of drill down and check on that. Access to all the lenders is a phrase we've heard many years ago, Robbo, didn't we? That was almost the line that she used to use, our old IFA, many years ago.
Absolutely. But it's true, and it's why you said it. The first thing you said was don't go to your bank. Whilst there's nothing wrong with the first stage of just approaching your bank to see what you can afford, your bank are only going to offer you one bank's options. A mortgage broker who is tied to a panel is only going to offer you maybe, like you said, 10 or 12. Depending on the mortgage market, there's anything between 400 and 4,000 different mortgage products available. So if you find yourself an independent mortgage broker, they will have a much bigger market, like say access to all the lenders. I can't remember which broker it was, but we used to hear it 25 times a day, didn't it? Yeah. But it's a massive thing. If you've got a choice of anything between 400 and 4,000 mortgages, you're going to get a much better rate and a much better product from I've had mortgages with Leeds Building Society, Coventry Building Society, the Bank of Ireland, all sorts of places that, frankly, the post office you may never have heard of, because it's not HSBC Nationwide or Halifax. So important advice, I think, is to make sure you get that, and you get the advice on what type of mortgage to take out and what they all mean, frankly. Right, Andy, you've got your deposit, you've got your credit in check, you know how much you're able to spend on a property. Now you need to do what?
Find a house, but understand why you're moving. And that's going to sound like the most bizarre thing ever, but ask yourself the question: why are you buying a house? Is it a second property you want to buy? Is it a bigger property? Is it your first property? You're looking for a job closer to work, closer to schools, closer to family. Understand that. Understand why you're moving, why you want to move.
Yeah,
and then go and drive around those areas and drive around the areas you want to have a look at. Understand the area that you want to buy in.
A question I ask every buyer, and I don't know if you guys do as well, is what are your non-negotiables? What will you not bend on when you're looking to buy a house? Something that will either make you buy it or stop you from buying it. And I had a lovely chat with someone who was not interested in my advice yesterday, who'd viewed 60 properties and wanted to view a property that I'm selling, and he's looking anywhere south, west, or east within an hour of London for a house. And I said, what are your non-negotiables? And he said, I'll know it when I see it. I said, well, is it 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms or driveway parking or a garage or needs work, doesn't need work, or needs to be 10 minutes from a station or needs to be 5 minutes from an outstanding primary school, or do you want to be near a park, or do you want to be somewhere you can walk your dog? I know what I'm looking for. And I said,
if you tell me, I can help you.
I beg to differ. You viewed 60 houses and you haven't bought one yet.
You're not going to test drive every car between a Mini and a Ferrari, are you? So
absolutely. Now, I've got no problem with people going to view houses, because sometimes you get a good feel for what you want and what you don't want. It's a good way of narrowing down and realizing between things. But if you viewed 60 houses, I would say there's something fundamentally wrong with your search criteria. And you're going to spend, and you probably view another 60 before you find something.
I agree.
So we've got our credit in check. We've got our mortgage agreement in principle written. We've narrowed down why it is we're buying a house and what we want it to do for us. Dan, let's get out viewing.
Yeah, so viewing homes, I think, is really important. We've obviously just touched on how many you can view, but I think to start with, once you've got the idea, you're looking for you definitely need to have 3 bedrooms. You definitely want an ensuite. You want a downstairs toilet, and you need to have a garage. Let's say those are the things you need. You then need to go and see some, because you might be like me and walk into the first place and be impulsive or know what you want so clearly. You'll just go and buy it. But a lot of first-time buyers, I would suggest, probably view more than one house. And actually, you need to go and get comparables and see 2, 3, 4, 5 to know which one you like. To know what you're spending, because you'll see property prices, you'll see different values for very maybe similar homes with the way they're marketed by different agents and the prices are on that. So you can work out what the value of a home is to you. The property is only worth what someone's willing to pay. It could be you that's willing to pay that money for it. So ultimately, you can work out what a value of a home is to you and what's important, and then start to compare and be able to make an offer on a property.
Yeah, so out viewing a property, is there, I guess there can't be a definitive list, but is there a list of things that a first-time buyer should be looking for or looking at, or worry about, or be looking to confirm when they're at a house?
First of all, it depends on what you're looking for. But let's just say you're looking for a normal house, it's going to be freehold, and you're hoping people understand what that means. Some of the key questions I'd be asking is, first of all, is there an estate charge? Because it's a very common question that's come up in the last probably 4 years more so, where a lot of new builds or modern builds, there's an estate charge, which could be anything from £200 a year to, maybe even £50 a month or something like that. And that's also got to be taken into account on your affordability with a mortgage. You may lower what you spend, or you might not want to spend that. So ask that question. So a lot of houses do have it. Ask about simple things as well. The normal questions we get asked every day. How old is the boiler? You want to know those sort of things, because you've got to think of the cost you're going to maybe have if you're going to stay there for 5 years, what cost you may be putting into that home as well. If you're buying something brand new, Andy will be able to advise you probably a bit better than I can, but buying new, obviously you'd expect everything to be tip top, but there's certain things like snagging and so on later down the line. But I think when buying a home, maybe have a list of questions that would be important. And I'm happy actually to put a list of questions together, maybe pop it on our socials over the next few days so people can print it off and take it on viewings with them. Because there's probably at least 5 key questions, maybe 10, isn't there, that could help people.
Yeah, definitely.
Where is the parking? Is it confirmed? Is it allocated? If it doesn't have a driveway, is it 2 spaces? Things like that, because things get missed, and unfortunately people get halfway down a process and then go, oh, it had 1 parking space, I didn't know, or the boiler's 15 years old, not 10, and it's not been serviced and I might have to replace it, and things like that. So there's things you can know before making an offer. Definitely.
I think there's not a great example for a first-time buyer, but I've seen a house advertised in my hometown today, and I'm not going to name and shame. And on the advert, it says plot circa 1/3 of an acre. Now, that's quite a big, chunky house, so unlikely to be a first-time buyer's house. But I don't know what your definition of circa 1/3 of an acre is, but I looked at the title deed of the property and it measures 0.18, which is obviously quite a lot less than a fifth.
Yeah, that's not really a third of an acre, circa a third, is it?
No, not in my opinion. It's about half of a third. So from my point of view, I think your questions are absolutely right. Is there an estate charge? Is the property definitely freehold? Can you confirm the parking? I'd go further. Can you give me a copy of the title to confirm that detail? Because estate agents are very, very fast to write rounded up numbers which may not be truly measured. The owner probably told that estate agent it's around about a third of an acre, I think, and they went, yeah, that sounds good, that'll help sell it, without actually looking at it. It took 2 minutes to look at it. I thought, it's never a third of an acre on that road, it's 0.18.
And on that, it's quite simple to get hold of the title deed beforehand as an agent, isn't it? We can get hold of that and go, there you go. So yeah, it's not difficult to get information for people.
And that will confirm your parking situation. It'll confirm which garage is which, if it's in a block and that kind of thing. Andy, I know you're going to be itching to say what are the good questions when out on a viewing for a new home specifically.
Yeah, just first and foremost, no question is a silly question when you're buying a home.
100%.
And do not be afraid to ask any question, because the laws have changed so much that you cannot lie in terms of if you're asking a definitive question about the boiler, about any works on the house. You can't say, oh, it's had no works done, when you've had the whole thing replumbed because you had a major leak. The owners have got to be transparent. But going on to new builds, the warranty, who the warranty provider is, how long the warranty is. Invariably, it'd be 10 years, but it could be with NHBC, it could be with a Shore build, it could be with a lesser provider that some lenders won't actually touch. So you need to understand who the actual provider is, and then before you get your mortgage offer, is check with the lender if they go with that warranty provider.
That's interesting. That's something I didn't know. I didn't know that some lenders won't touch the providers of warranties for brand new buildings.
I
didn't even know that.
Yeah, it tends to be the smaller lenders. But just ask the question, because you don't want to get 3-4 weeks down the line, get a mortgage offer, and then the mortgage offer says, yeah, fine, but we're not going to give you a mortgage offer because you're with that provider. So it's understanding who the warranty provider is. And what warranties the developer is giving you on top of the NHBC or the other warranty providers. Now, the majority of developers will give you either a 1 year or a 2 year warranty on certain things. You can then get the 10-year warranty on your appliances if you register those, and it's all understanding what developer is doing what, and that's only goes by asking the question to whoever's showing you the property, whether it's a sales advisor, whether it's me as the guy who owns Mead New Homes. I will know all that before I show anybody around the house. I'll know the warranty provider. I'll know what provisions you've got. I will know what additional cover you can get just by registering your appliances, because a lot of people don't understand if you register your appliances, you actually could get a 10-year warranty on them.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that.
I think the stickers for that are still on the front of my washing machine. Fancy sticker, never pulled it off. Probably should do with that. But it's a very good point. Is there anywhere you can go to get that kind of advice? Anyone you can follow, apart from yourself on social media, obviously?
Not really, no, because each developer has got different warranty providers. I'd say the majority are NHBC, Builder Shore. There's numerous developers, but the mortgage advisor will be able to give you a list of, say, for example, you're going with, I'll say Leeds Building Society because they're the best football team in the world. If you lead with Leeds Building Society will have a list of who their warranty providers they'll use are. If you're not on that list, they won't give you a mortgage on it.
So they'll be clear, but there's a lot of different banks and building societies out there, so it takes some research.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay, so fingers crossed we found something that we actually like and we want to buy. Maybe we can go around the room here with a couple of tips each. Making an offer and securing the property. Michael, what are your top 1 or 2 tips to when you're putting your offer forward, how to put your offer forward in the best possible way to, I don't know what the best phrase is, impress the seller and the estate agent?
Speaking from experience, again, 20 years ago, I would ask for advice if I'm a first-time buyer, buying my first property, making my first offer. I'd ask from advice from people who've done it before, from friends or family who've bought a property. Because I can remember I made one offer, the estate agent said, no, you need to pay the asking price. And I said, okay. Just done. No research into the area, what other house prices have sold for. Just jump straight in. So I'd get a bit of advice, first of all, before making an offer of any level.
So you've bought and sold houses. You do it all day, every day. What is your one piece of golden advice for that person? Is it research?
Yeah, do your own research, first of all. Know the market. Because I think if people call me and they make an offer on one of my properties, and you can tell straight away if they've done their research into the area. They know, straight away. And I think I pass that information on to my sellers, education. They know what they're talking about. So do your research. And nowadays with Rightmove, Zoopla, albeit you don't want to look at the Zoopla, the price of the property, because that's all over the place. But you can get a rough idea or a very good idea of what a property is worth just from spending 10, 15 minutes online yourself.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Dan?
It's a couple of things, really. First of all, in terms of the level of offer, it's obviously you can get advice and so on, but it is completely up to the person making the offers. And the only thing I'd say is to think about how long you're going to be there. If you're buying your first home and think you're going to be there for 5 years, I might have paid £5,000 more for the place I'm in now, for example, but I'm going to be here for a while. So actually it's going to pay itself off. I'm not really going to worry about it if it secures me the home when others are interested. And even though we're in a market now that might be a little bit slower, if properties are priced correctly, there's still going to be 2, 3, 4 buyers for the houses because there's a lot of people out there wanting to buy. So just think about what you want to pay, but make sure you don't walk. The way I would say it is if you're going to walk past that house in 3 months' time and someone else is living there and you went, crap, I would have paid an extra grand. Probably should have if it's just an extra 1,000. And it could have been the difference between securing it or not. I don't know. So just pay what you feel comfortable with, and you can walk away from with your head held high. In terms of presenting an offer for a first-time buyer or any buyer, I think it's really important to sort of not oversell yourself as something fake, but just give an honest account of why you want to live there, what your position is, and putting it in writing. So you can make the offer over the phone, but always follow up with an email. Make sure you've got a record of it, and say, it's myself or me and my partner or whatever. The reason I love this house is because the location, it's got everything I've needed. I've viewed 5 houses. It's the perfect one for me. The best offer I can make is X. I'm not looking to negotiate, but it's my best offer I want to put forward. And these are my finances. This is my mortgage advisor. These are my potential solicitors I've got ready to line up. I have a month's notice period. I'm living with parents and I can move at this speed or at this pace, or I can be flexible. Whatever it may be, give them every bit of information, because your offer will stand head and shoulders above the next person who just makes an offer going, I offer 400 and that's it. You stand ahead of them because you've been informed it up front, done your research, and you're ready to rock and roll. That's what I look for when I'm putting an offer forward to a seller. I think it's key. And all the parts we've mentioned, apart from solicitors, which I'm sure we'll come on to, you'll have that all in place. You look like an absolute A-star buyer. And I think that's what you want to be as a first-time buyer, as an A-star buyer.
Andy, from the new homes perspective, making an offer, how do you make the best offer that the developer's going to go for?
I think first and foremost, as a buyer, you need to understand timescales, when the property is going to be ready. And I think that goes back to second-hand stuff as well, is understanding what the seller's motivation is for moving and what their onward plans are. Because if you're a first-time buyer and you can wait 3, 4, 5 months, then Mrs. Jones, who's desperate to move and is selling her place because she needs to be near her elderly parents who are not very well, time is of the essence for them. Whereas if it's not that and we're moving for other reasons, it's understanding the timescales. But with a new build, I would try and understand the build program. If the property's not built, I would do an awful lot of research on the developer in terms of their deliverance and deliverability. Because it's all well and good saying, it's going to be summer, but is summer June, July, August, September, October? Nobody knows. So find a developer that will give you an idea. And I know it's the problem with new builds, and this is always very difficult, is saying exactly when it's going to be ready if you're buying off plan or if the property's still under construction, because you've got an awful lot of third, fourth, fifth party involvement that could cause a delay. But it's understanding what how quickly the developer is. And I've got the development at the moment where we were saying December, and I was saying with the developer, I said that's fine. And we were selling them back in April, May of last year, and they were saying no, it's December. And lo and behold, it was December, because there was an issue with some materials coming. There was an issue with something else. So it's rather than us saying to the buyer it was August, September, it was in December. It was December, and that's when the days were. So it's being honest and understanding what the development's criteria is. If they're saying it's a summer, if they're saying it's autumn, if they're saying it's winter, well, winter in the UK could be anything from November to April.
Easter. Yeah.
So it's understanding how they define a season.
Yeah, totally agree. Dan, I'm absolutely on board with your proposal of putting something in writing that is not just a number, because we've all had offers from people which is a text message which reads 386000.
Yeah, what, 3860 monkeys? I'm like,
and that's all you get from someone, and you're expected to tell someone why they want to sell their house to that person. I would absolutely 100% be writing a letter addressed to the seller, to the agent, saying, my name's Mike, I want to buy your house because I'm desperate to get my son into the local school before next year. the reason I want to buy your house is I've driven past that road for the last 15 years and I've always wanted to live there, whatever reason it is. So there's some sort of emotional attachment. And as you say, attaching the details of your mortgage broker who can verify your finances, proof of my deposit, proof of my solicitors, everything to show that for the estate agent, I'm going to be really easy to deal with because I'm a professional. And for the seller, I'm providing absolute certainty that I'm going ahead. I'm not just buying it because I'm panic buying or because the housing market's going up or down or left or right. I'm buying it because I actually want the house. That's really, really important to me. And that's something I convey to my sellers is I'm really confident that these people are going to go ahead because they're desperate to buy your house because they love your house for whatever reason. And there's something that if you worked for the organisation that myself, Dan, and Andy did some years ago, and Michael managed to avoid, a great bit of training where it was always drummed into us. There's 4 reasons for either for selling a house: speed, price, ease, or certainty. That might take you back. Spec, as it was called. But if as a buyer you can ask that question of the seller, what is it that they're looking for in a buyer? Are they looking for speed? Like Andy said, they desperately need to move because they've got ill parents 200 miles away. Are they looking for price? Maybe they're downsizing, so they need to get the maximum value. Are they looking for ease because something's happened in their life and they just need to dispose of the property? Or are they looking for absolute certainty that it's going to go ahead? Maybe they've reserved a new home and put up a £10,000 deposit for that new home, and they have to have that house sold by the 1st of April. Otherwise, they're going to be in all sorts of trouble and lose £10,000 out of a deposit. If you as a buyer know whether it's speed, price, ease, or certainty, you can tailor your offer to suit that seller, in my opinion. And whilst it's a bit cheesy, spec, it's one worth remembering. Very much corporate training.
I was going to say, the other thing as well with selling a house from the seller's point of view, no matter what we say, some of it is business related, it's just a transaction. But I'd say 90% of the time, there's definitely emotion in it. People want to see their home they've lived in go to somebody who's nice, or going to be a nice neighbor they've made friends with, and things like that. It does play into it. Like if you know they're nice people, or at least you think they're nice people, because that's what you describe yourself as. It definitely does help with the decision-making process.
Definitely. So, right. We have got our bills in order. We've got an AIP. We've narrowed down why we're buying a house. We've viewed the house. We've secured the house by making a phenomenal offer on the property. The process, this is the dark and dingy bit that nobody understands. If there's a conveyancer watching live, say hi.
If you dare.
Or a surveyor or anyone in the professional services, drop us a little hello. I say no one understands it. It is an understandable process, but it is a confusing process if you only ever move a few times in your life. You just blows your mind. Guys, what are the milestones of the purchase of the property once an offer's accepted?
I think first of all, you need to find yourself a good conveyancer to do it all.
How do you do that?
Well, don't get quotes from various different companies. Don't go with a cheap one, the one that's just online. Again, get recommendations. Has anybody actually used that company before? If you are getting quotes from that solicitor, are they coming back to you quickly? That's often a sign. If they take a week to come back to you with a quote, how quickly are they going to respond to you when you're trying to buy a house? God, I've got loads of things here.
I think if you're buying, sorry, Mark, but if you're buying a new home, any new homes company will have a panel of 2 or 3 solicitors they would recommend to you that all 3 of them have already got the contractual paperwork, they've already gone through the contracts, and they are there ready and waiting. Now, just because the developer has put them forward as a preferred company, they are still working for you as the buyer. You are still their client. The developer is not their client. the developer is recommending them because they know they can get the job done in a timely manner. Now, that would save you, the buyer, time, stress, and money. So if you're buying a new home and the developer is recommending you three solicitors, use one of those 3 solicitors, whichever one you feel happy with.
Okay. But if you're buying a home and the estate agent recommends a solicitor to you, I would question the estate agent. Why are you recommending me this solicitor? Because more often than not, they're a load of.
Do you know what I think?
Insert expletive.
Yeah. Do you know? I get that. That is true because this. We've all been there before, right? The last place I worked, I was paid an extra few quid, not a great deal, but every time I got them to use a certain solicitor, and they weren't very good. It's how we were told to do things. But one question I try to do with the way we do things now is I get people to tell me which solicitor they want to use, and I just say, I'll just tell you if they're good or bad. That's it. Give you an honest opinion. You can make your own decision because I've seen enough to know which ones aren't that great. And if someone goes, I'm going to use X and X, and I know they're terrible, I was like, look, pick whoever you want, but just please don't go with those specifically, sort of thing. So, but yeah, you've got to do your own research, haven't you, Michael? Just got to look into it best you can.
Yeah, well, I think being comfortable with your solicitor is a great place to start before you go anywhere.
But I'd usually say if you can, from my experience selling and buying with them as well, as someone local, maybe you can get to in town, you can physically go and then drop paperwork off if you need to, rather than having to post it and rely on the postal system. It's not exactly great, is it? Royal Mail are pretty crap. Going in there, speak
a whole different half hour, that is.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Maybe someone local, reputable, that's been in town, been around for a long time. You'll always find 2 or 3 solicitors in your local high street in town, wherever you live near. There's always reputable ones in there, so I'm sure you can find one if you pop in.
Yeah, I think local can be important. I obviously work in Bracknell, and employing a Bracknell solicitor to do a transaction in Bracknell can be very important because there's certain weird anomalies that happen that if they've dealt with 20 other houses in that development, they're going to know before it even comes up and deal with it, rather than throw all the paperwork up in the air and start investigating something that doesn't need investigating. I've seen, if anyone is watching that knows Bracknell, I've seen properties been described as a flood risk because they're near the cut in Warfield, which is actually 14 feet below ground level. There's properties in Jennings Park where the streets aren't adopted, so solicitors don't know what to do. There's properties that are formerly leasehold properties that are now freehold properties in Wooden Hill. If you employ a local solicitor, they'll know how to convert that into a freehold property on the title in minutes, rather than tell you it's a leasehold property. So all sorts of things where a local solicitor will just already know it. Mike's just raised an eyebrow. He knows what I'm talking about and what roads I'm talking about, I think. And probably been through that pain with the solicitors over the years. It's an important thing. And as you say, my tip on it is to make sure you're going to have access to what they call, in their jargon, the fee earner, not just a conveyancing assistant. I want access to the fee earner because they're the person who sign things off. They're the people who make the decisions. They're the people who give the advice. And I want direct access to that person. I don't want it to be coming through an assistant. I think that's important from my point of view, to have direct contact. And that sometimes defines whether you're getting hold of a good solicitor's firm or what we in the industry would define as a factory conveyancing outfit, which we'll tell you about in private at a different date. So the happy day comes maybe 28 days down the line if you're buying a brand new home and all the paperwork's already been done. It might come 6 months down the line if there's a chain of properties. But the completion day, now, what happens? Let's roll back slightly, maybe to exchange and completion. What happens? What should you be doing? What shouldn't you be doing, guys?
I'll start if you want.
Go for it. Mr. Completion.
I guess first of all, just to maybe break down the jargon so people know, if you're a first-time buyer, you exchange contracts before you complete. Exchange is usually 7 days or 7 working days prior to completion. Can be longer, has known to be on the same day, but you try to avoid that if possible. And what it basically means is exchange is when typically 10% of the purchase price is put forward on the next home to secure it, so the contracts are then binding. And then on completion is where the rest of your money and your mortgage funds are drawn down to purchase that home. And on the day of completion, you've got to wait for the money to work its way up. So let's say it's 250,000 you've borrowed and got going up. That needs to be released in the morning and get to the next house for it to officially complete. And when we've been notified it's completed, the estate agent is legally allowed to give you the key to your house. So that, to break that down, I thought I'd just explain that bit.
Absolutely. Again, it's jargon, isn't it? You know, what is exchanging on a house? What on earth does that mean? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? You know, what do I do? Is those are the sorts of things that people need to know. Andy, how does that differ in the new homes world?
If you're buying off plan or the property's not ready now, until the property's signed off, so it's got the legal sign off by the NHBC and the local authorities, you can exchange contracts, but you can't complete. And obviously, you can't exchange contracts with a fixed date unless you've got all the information. So what you tend to do on a new build is you exchange on something called notice. Now, the notice period is a 2-week notice period that the developer has to give you to complete. So therefore, you will exchange contracts at the end of January, and it will be on notice but you will have a rough idea on the days and the date that you're going to be looking at. So it could be March, first week of March, second week of March, third week of March. So if it's going to be the middle of March, the developer through the legal system will contact you on the 1st of March and say, we've now got everything in place, we're ready to complete. We would like to complete on the 14th of March. Or if you want to do it earlier, by mutual agreement, you can both do it earlier. So you could do it on the 2nd of March, but both parties have got to agree. But it's got to be it's got to be a 14-day period. So you can get everything in place for that 14 days. And you need to make sure that your mortgage offer, when you exchange contracts, will still be in place for the anticipated completion date. Because if your mortgage offer is expired, you can't complete, and therefore you're in breach of contract. But that's all things that are, if you look at the document of the link I put in the document, Guide to Buying a New Home, it's all on there. Or if you're unsure about anything on a new build, whether I'm selling it or whether I'm not selling it, just drop me a line. Because there's a little bit of it's different to buying a second-hand property.
Yes. Generally speaking, just for like clarity on that, a mortgage offer generally lasts about 6 months. And obviously, sometimes you will reserve a house 12 months in advance of it being ready to be built. So your mortgage may expire and you need to reapply, or have an extension, or have a specific type of mortgage in place that will cover you for that period of time. So it's kind of what we're getting at there. Mike, tips for completion day?
Drive all the way to the town centre to the estate agent office, hang around, wait for them to turn up to give you the keys.
Yeah, parking ticket.
Yeah.
in a long wheelbase van.
Yeah, going back to what Dan said, if you're the first time buyer and you get the call saying your completion's gone through, you get all excited, you want the keys immediately and you want to get in straight away, but don't be too angry. I can remember being very angry when somebody hadn't moved out by 2 o'clock a long time ago, when I was buying the house, not now. But that whole chain's all got to come together. That whole chain has to complete. Other people in the house, it's a big move for them, packing up and moving out themselves. Just don't be too disappointed if you're not in that house by, I don't know, 11 a.m, 12 p.m, but just because your completion's gone through.
Again, yeah, it's getting a good understanding of what the chain situation is. If you're buying an empty house, you can expect to have the keys by 11 o'clock reasonably, can't you? But if you're buying a house where the sellers live there and they're moving on, and those people are moving on, those chains can complete in mid-afternoon, and people cannot physically leave that house until the completion's gone through. So
a lot of it goes back to the solicitor as well. If you've got a solicitor that's worth their salt, they'll apply for the funds 24 hours before the completion day. So they've got the funds in their account at 8:30 in the morning. So they can then start passing. It's the ones that then apply for the completion funds on the day of completion. That's where the ones that get delayed. Sometimes it could happen.
Yeah. So
Got another little sneaky tip, by the way, as well. People didn't realise this, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure to exchange contracts on a house, you need buildings insurance because you technically own it, don't you, or coming out to. So you have to have your buildings insurance in place for an exchange. So in between this crazy process, have a little compare the meerkat and see what buildings insurance you can get for your property. In place, you have to ask questions like what window locks do you have and door locks. You have to know that sort of stuff and the age of the property. But you need that signed up for when you exchange.
Yeah, absolutely right. You do 100% need to insure the building between exchange and completion, just in case. And I have heard some nightmare stories of incidents recently happening between exchange and completion, actually on new build houses where they've been broken into. So the insurance has been absolutely vital at that point on a development. So really, really important tip there. And a lot of mortgage companies will point it out and enforce it. Maybe some won't. So it's very, very important that you insure the property from exchange to completion, definitely. So
a lot of it now will be on the mortgage offer. It'll be a condition of the mortgage offer.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, that's why they won't allow you to exchange, will they, without it?
You don't think so, no, but they definitely won't allow you to complete unless you've got the document to show you've got insurance.
Should be something a mortgage broker should be asking you to do, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been on for 45 minutes. Hopefully we've picked up a few points or given people a few tips on the system, making sure it works in your favour as a first-time buyer, ensuring that you can secure a property over somebody else, and tips for sourcing the right financial advisor, mortgage broker, and for conveyancing as well. Someone's just sent in a really last-minute question, Andy Mead.
2 questions, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Andy Mead for 2 minutes. Your topic.
Does help to buy delay the process. Well, if you haven't applied for it, you can't have it now. Does it delay the process? Not really. No, not if you're using a solicitor that knows Help to Buy, and you've got a mortgage broker that knows the Help to Buy process. The mortgage broker should, if they're worth their salt, be helping you along with the process. So, long answer short, no, it shouldn't, but yes, it does. If you don't use the right broker or the right
Wonderful.
If you're left to do
at the end there.
Yeah, if you're left to do it yourself, then you'll get it wrong. You've got to
absolute minefield. Yeah.
If you've got somebody who knows what they're doing and they know how to do it, they will do it for you properly. The problem with Help to Buy is if you get it wrong, they send it back to you, and then you go to the back of the queue. So it's having a solicitor that understands the Help to Buy process, and it's having a mortgage broker that understands the Help to Buy process.
Yeah, I think my impression of the Help to Buy process is someone has a massive in tray and they work from the top to the bottom, and anytime anything's wrong, it just goes straight to the bottom again.
Jess, if you want to contact me directly, and if you're having problems with Help to Buy, if you've already applied for it, if you applied for it before the end of October, you'll be fine. If you wouldn't have been able to apply for it after the end of October, but if you are having problems, just drop me a line on my link, and then I can have a chat with you about it, because it's a bit of a minefield if you don't know what you're doing.
Gents, thanks as ever for your time. We'll be back next week addressing another subject in detail. So if you've enjoyed it, put a note in your calendar, subscribe to our YouTube, follow any of our social pages that are tagged to this post, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you later.
See ya.